Welcome to the Big Fat Real Estate Checks podcast with Marco Kozlowski, where we help investors like you get the knowledge and skills you need to replace your JOB with passive cash flow for life.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Fat Real Estate Checks. This is Marco Kozlowski, and I'm here with Francesco Galluccio and Gabriela Reich. And we're going to have a lot of fun today discussing one of the 5 topics that we want to talk about today. I think we're going to be discussing, what was it, how you said it, Frank? It was perfect.
Oh, man.
There's a time to take shortcuts, but this isn't one of them.
Yes.
Or this time isn't one of them, yeah.
Yes. Shortcuts sometimes cost you more money or...
I forgot what it did say. And it was so brilliant. You gave me a semi-quasi compliment.
It was a really good. I refer to Frank because he said it way in
I just
fewer
repeated
words than I
it,
could.
guys.
Which
This is exactly what he said. There's
Is that what it said?
to take shortcuts in
Yeah.
life, but this time isn't one of them.
There you go.
yes, there you go. All right, excellent. All right, well there you go. Well, it's
Thank
still
you.
well said, Frank. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank
Hold
you very
on,
much.
Frank Galluccio. I got to give you the quote.
Yeah, I'll get T-shirts made and some swags. Yeah.
That's right.
So for those of you, that was like the weirdest introduction we've ever had, and let's keep it weird. It's a lot of fun. It's like we're in Austin, Texas, which is their slogan. The mission that we have, of course, is to give you some amazing content and give you the ability to use skills and knowledge to generate income, not necessarily credit or money. It doesn't take money to make money. It takes skills, knowledge, and discipline in order to do that, and this is definitely a topic that is going to be important as it's relevant to me as we speak in me buying another business that I'll be discussing today. It is extremely relevant to real estate. We do use asset-based lenders to pull money from. An asset-based lender is clearly explained in the first 10 episodes. If you have not yet listened to that, please do listen, love it, like it, share it in any of our episodes, and of course subscribe so you can really get in on the action as we produce more episodes. You can get in on the action and help us as well with new ideas for episodes, as we've done almost 150 now, and we've only had one guest this entire time. And apparently that's...
It's not that we're antisocial. No.
We have a lot of content to give out, and we want to make sure that we hit a lot of the topics, and some I think hit almost twice, but there's always a fresh look to it. And we're very committed to making sure you have the best possible content that's relevant, applicable, actionable, so you can get the best results in your life. And of course, if you want to really learn and dig deep and really get massive results, podcasts are great, but getting kicked in the ass is much, much better, and having a clear direction and really investing in yourself, the necessary education necessary to put it all together into one focused plan of action so you can really get somewhere very, very quickly, which is ultimately the end goal. And almost the topic that we're talking about today, but not really, which you will see. So I guess let's go. Let's get into this. So there's a... Well, first, let me preface with this. I bought into a bar. I don't know if I've even discussed this on the podcast yet, but I invested in a bar that we turned into an experience bar in Orlando, and the bar was not doing very well. There were actually there was 2 bars, and one of them was involved in some litigation during COVID, and were maliciously pushed around by the landlord. And the one of the establishments was forced to close its doors. Anyway, long story short, we survived. I say we because now I own those companies. But long story short, we're going to do quite well because of what happened. Let's just call it that. I'm in the middle of litigation, so there's only so much I can say without incriminating myself or the guilty. So I have to be careful. Now, there's a bar owner that actually saw the turnaround that we did, because it went from the verge of shutting its doors, the one I invested in, to flourishing, and actually won awards for different events that we do. So we're very, very, very involved in the community now, which we weren't before. So we really turned the thing around. Now, the human that saw us do that has a very similar situation going on and wanted help. So I offered to help, and this human did not get an attorney to take a look at the lease that they had, and did it very quickly. And now, just to put context into this, a bar is not cheap. A liquor license, the kind of liquor license necessary to operate a bar, now goes for close to $800,000. So it's extremely expensive, and it takes up a lot of cash, and it takes up a lot of knowledge. So generally, when you're putting things together, you want to have the right paperwork and have the right attorney put things together. And buying a liquor license, getting it, getting the bar, have a unique concept, making sure that it stands out of all the other things that you're doing, which is not different at all from the business that we're in right now. In real estate, when we're discussing with an agent or a seller that we have the capital, that we're able to move quickly, we have to sound like a buyer, sound different and unique from all the other noise of tire kickers and those that really don't know what they're doing. Because if you are an agent, there's a lot of time wasting that's going on, really weeding out the shit buyers from the real buyers, and really making sure that you have the right language and the right actions that go behind your language down perfectly, so you are congruent in how you're communicating, so people want to give you a discount. So in that same vein, I did the same thing with this other bar owner that wanted me to buy into the business because he was really hurting. So negotiated a really good deal. Actually, Frank was in town when this was happening, and I was explaining what was going on. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, he didn't get an attorney to look over the paperwork, and his lease was horrendous. The first line of his of the lease basically said that they're not allowed to operate a nightclub, and the definition of a nightclub is actually having alcohol and music, and it's a bar that has alcohol and music. So
already he was in breach.
The lease sucks. Yes.
Wow.
So I said I would help and actually buy into the business, just like I did with my counterparts in the business I have now, because I saw that we turned around well. I'm like, we need to change the lease. They wouldn't obviously change the lease, and anyway, this was like 2 weeks ago, and now they basically put a piece of paper in front of him and say, listen, if you don't sign this, we're taking all your basically going to go after you personally. We're going to buy your liquor license. We're going to give you, a couple bucks for your liquor license, but you're basically going to be wiped out and you're done. And the guy just signs it without even looking at an attorney again. So the first time he signed a lease without getting an attorney, and now just signed something else without consulting an attorney, and is completely wiped out, not understanding that now he's going to not only lose any asset that he has, but most likely they're going to go after him for something else later, right? It's not going to necessarily exonerate him from that. So I don't even know how clear that was. I might have to go in and clean this up or not, depending on, how things go here. But I'm hoping I'm as clear as I can be. So human does something and cuts a corner, which is the lease, which is what allows you to operate, which is very important. And I know it might sound like, who would ever do that? Well, I'm guilty of doing the same thing many years ago because I thought I couldn't afford an attorney or help, just like some people think I can't afford $1,500, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 for a class that teaches me how to buy assets without using my own money. I can't afford this. And if you come from a position of I can't afford it, it's always going to cost you more money later. So in this case, the guy buys a liquor license, gets a bar, gets all this shit, and is ready to rock. And with COVID, which is when he opened, which is like the worst thing ever, trying to catch up, it was very difficult for them to stay alive. So now it's in a position where the landlord says, I'm going to seize everything today or sign this document, and he just signs it right on the spot without even thinking, because he's afraid, A, of complete loss, and 2, doesn't consult an attorney to see what his rights are at all. And I've been working with this guy for almost a month.
Yeah.
It's been almost a month.
Yeah, probably more when I was down there, yeah.
And yeah. Well, you were down here for what, 3-4 months?
Well, not consecutively, but yes.
I heard he had to get remarried when he got home.
Yeah.
He has a secret family here.
Family.
No,
but it has been over a month for sure when you were talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy just disappears and then suddenly says, "Hey, do you want to buy shit out of my property? Because I just signed over everything to the landlord." And I'm like, total Scooby-Doo moment. Like, how is that even possible? So the lesson here, for if this is the first time you're listening to a podcast, I promise it's not just me talking. I think you promise. It's an interesting lesson in that if you shortcut
Anything.
one of the most important thing, which is the least, and you shortcut again, it made the same mistake. Life is a funny thing, a funny way of, if you learn how you do one thing is how you do everything, but you would think that losing almost everything would teach you to at least fix the same mistake again, but it's not as obvious from an outside looking in. So I just wanted to have that as the topic of the day. I think that's the whole podcast. I just spoke for 20 minutes explaining the situation itself. But so I know all of us have done this, but that's just an example of what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. I was in the same, not around the bar or anything, but I was in the same situation before I joined your mentorship program, Marco, where, you know what, let me try to do this on my own. I know I wanted to buy property stateside, and to save a buck, you're not really saving a buck, because luckily I met you on time, because I was going to pull the trigger on a couple of properties down stateside using my own money. So I would have been in the game quickly and out of the game quickly, because it's using my own money and not getting at a discount. It's fishing upstream basically. So that, and I know, Gabe, you introduced me to, a very reputable accounting firm. By all means, they're not cheap. But in the end, yes, they are expensive, but in the end, you're going to replenish all that money that you did invest, because you're saving that much, if not a lot more, on taxes.
Can you share, Frank, real quick, so people have context? Because the hourly wage, I know I think we might have discussed it on the podcast, but if you could share, because it really gives also good perspective, right? So you want to, as you start making more money, you're Canadian, so you have to, as you make more money in Canada, just like in the U.S., but the threshold is completely different in Canada. Once you go over a certain level of money, you're in another tax bracket that really just pummels you, right? You're actually, I remember having a pilot that I was talking to a pilot as a mentor. I was his mentor, and they wanted to give, in Canada, they wanted to give him a raise, and because it was like a $20,000 raise, but because of the raise, he actually ended up keeping less.
You went into a different tax bracket,
which makes and that 20 grand actually, and more. So he actually
he lost money
less with the $20,000 raise. It's like, I don't want to lose.
In Canada, where you end up working for the government more than you work for yourself. And there's a lot of people. There's some people that intentionally keep one of the spouses home, because if they go to work, it's more expensive than just keeping them at home and having them, not collecting a paycheck, but taking the kids back and forth to school, or keeping them at home rather than daycare. So that
actually in Canada,
tax planning is definitely a big plus.
They have a tax savings day. Basically, it's a day, I don't know if it's in June or July, where basically you worked for the government for that first part of the year, and the rest you get to keep. I don't know if it's July or August is like that.
I think it's July 28th or something. It's sometime in July. Yeah, because I know there's a day that they celebrate that you now everything.
So you're like approaching 8 months basically, close to August. So you're working for the government, then the rest you get to keep. So that's and we talked about that in partnerships in one of the podcasts. But just going back, so I did have a proper structure initially when I first joined mentorship with you, Marco, and there was an asset protection attorney and everything. But like you said, as you grow, now that the tax implication got a little bit bigger, and I had to pivot and say, okay, well, do I keep it? I'm still making money, but I'm paying a little bit more to Uncle Sam and the CRA, which I didn't want to do. So Gabe introduced me to a very reputable, I guess they're world-renowned firm. And when he told me the price, he goes, they're good. They know their stuff from both sides of the borders. He goes, but they're $1,000 an hour. And I go, wow. And I like talking a lot. So $1,000 an hour, I already saw dollar signs. But
was that $3,000?
Just an intro. What do you do?
I think they even gave you a discount.
He did give me a discount because he knew you. Yeah. So thank God for the discount. But anyways, I tried to keep myself quiet, but I had to obviously ask questions just so I have a clear understanding. But in the end, like, no regrets on that. Yes, it was thousands of dollars at the end of the day that I got the bill. And this is the first year that I'm putting it through the cycle. So, fingers crossed, I know I'm going to save. I'll make that back within the 1 year anyway. So it is an investment. So that's the way you look at it. It does hurt at first. I'm not going to lie. Pardon?
And
It is tax deductible, yeah.
Too,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the cost is tax deductible, and let's say it costs you $20,000 because that $3,000 for hello, $3,000 for goodbye.
Can you explain that again? Can you repeat that again? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Wait, speak slowly, and then you say the same thing over and over again. You're looking at least, like, let's call it $20,000 for shits and giggles. That $20,000 is invested once, and in your tax savings, you are going to make your money back just in 1 year, over and over and over again. Plus, as you make more money, those savings compound.
and the
into
structure
other things,
is
right?
eternal, more or less, right? Until you close it. So there's
It is the end. This is the end structure that I'm doing. Yeah, this
correct. Yeah. So there's so much. At the end of the day, you can't afford not to do this. That's where it comes down to, right?
Boom.
You can't.
Drop the mic. It's over. It's over. Drop the mic. That is. You can't afford not to do it. That's the title of the podcast, just so you know. Perfect.
Go.
Yeah.
Keep going. No. You can't afford not to do it. So give us an example, Gabe, of
in my case,
what
I mean,
you thought you were cutting a corner.
Yeah.
But it actually cost you more.
So I think it's well documented that I made a lot of mistakes before seeking out and finding Marco and his educational programs and his amazing mentorship. I was introduced to real estate via some, I guess people I knew, my entourage, people that, were friends. And, I basically just trusted without verifying, I guess is the main idea here. And that cost me dearly. It cost me a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of relationships. So there's a lot of costs for not taking the time, and maybe I didn't know how to do it at the time. Even though I'm a CPA, should have known how to do this maybe, but real estate wasn't something that I was familiar with. So maybe I should have just hired someone to, even if it's someone from a firm I worked at the time, where they could just take a look at this and tell me what they thought, and instead convinced myself that it was the right move. And because it's people I knew, and they wouldn't screw me, or they would be honest, or they wouldn't be dishonest. So yeah, I guess that to me, that was a shortcut that ended up being an extremely, extremely long cut. And investing in my education, even though in theory, someone would look at the what I spent or what I invested, would say you're crazy, and people have said that, and they still tell me this. Yet probably the best investment I've ever made, because it's something that serves me right now. It's served me in the past. It's going to continue to serve me moving forward. And again, if I look back now at what I went through and all these costs that I mentioned, and there's a lot of emotional costs that I went through personally, like very dark periods that are extremely painful, and even thinking about them today, it will bring me back to kind of those emotions. And if I could have avoided all that just by investing in a shortcut, because that's what the real shortcuts are in life, is when you learn from someone who's been there before and who's basically taken the beatings and made the mistakes and spent the money and the cost, just the way I do it now for someone who's trying to get into real estate or into any other business, and I see that they're trying to take a shortcut that I made. And like, it's not worth it. Like, just do this, that, and you're going to avoid all this pain and all these negative emotions. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's I couldn't afford not to do it at the time. And I said, I can't afford to do it. And that was the biggest mistake, I think, in my business career. And I'm glad I made it, because I wouldn't be where I am today. But, just if I can save you some trouble, the listener here, going forward, to not see any of these items, whether it's, your tax planning, whether it's your due diligence, specifically your due diligence, because you're going to do that over and over and over. Tax planning is something you do once, but due diligence is going to be deal by deal. It's going to be project by project or business by business. do not take shortcuts. You can't afford to take these shortcuts. They're going to cost you dearly if you make one mistake.
You know what?
No, knowing what you're getting into and knowing your exit at the same time. It's clarity of the deal and understanding what the pitfalls are, understanding the big picture. And if you either have experience or you pay someone with experience, which is cheaper than learning the lesson of losing your whole life savings, years and years of pain and suffering over just asking one person or two people a simple question to verify things. And sometimes the ego does get in the way.
No, I was just going to mention just recently, I saved $50,000. I would have lost $50,000 if it wasn't for, Marco's teachings and using his paperwork, because I had to pull the ace of spade at the last minute at the closing table where there was some paperwork snags on my end with the appraisal and all that. And I needed a day extension or a 2-day extension, but even a day would have saved me. But at that point, the seller was playing hardball, and she's like, "No, you want an extension? I want all this back taxes paid." That was basically she wanted like $50K or $30K, and it is blackmail. And I said, "Forget it. We're closing today." And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was like, "We're not ready." Like I wasn't ready to close. Well, not me. I was ready, but my team wasn't because of a paperwork snag. And I at the last moment, within a half hour driving to the closing table, I pulled over. I emailed the attorney, the closing agent, and the seller, and say, "Hey, on my way there. But before we close, just FYI, we're missing these documents. This is expected before we close and sign on the dotted line." This is at 3:30 p.m. And the shit hit the roof basically, and because of that, the seller didn't perform on her on the due diligence part. So she failed to perform some of the items there, and I was gonna forgive it because I know she was gonna do it at the closing table, but I wanted it before I signed on the dotted line. So, anyways, on that note. So she didn't show up to the closing table that day, and that kind of saved my bacon, and it saved my EMD, which I had $50K on there. Because if I wasn't ready to close, I would have lost my EMD for non-performance, and that would have been shitty.
And shit would have hit the
saved
roof,
your roof,
which
yeah.
I don't know how that happens.
Pardon?
Yeah,
shit would have hit the roof.
I don't know how shit. I've never heard shit because shit hits fans that goes everywhere. I don't know how you. I don't know how your toilet is, Frank, but it's must be the treehouse.
Well, if you're on the upper floor of something, it will hit the floor on something.
The new name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit hits the fan. Yes.
It hits the roof. No, it's all good. We're just gonna add that to in our library, which is good. And a piece of paper, as silly as it is, or a couple of words in the beginning of your lease, or buying an asset that looks good, but one little number that was made up or is in the wrong place. It's the small little things that make a big problem for you in the future that can really lose you everything that you have. And we're not here to scare you at all. This is not the intention of this podcast, even a little bit. It's just for you to ask for help if necessary, so you don't make a decision that's going to really impact you negatively for a very long time, when it's easier just to ask for help when you can.
Yeah, and just I want to go back to your example, I guess, just to kind of do a full circle here. Your how big is that lease in terms of paperwork? Like, what are we talking about? Like 10 pages?
10 pages.
Let's say they even charge the lawyer charges, $500 a page. $1,000 a page. That's $10,000. $10,000. How much do you have an idea what the lease amount was?
Well, the lease amount, I believe it's like $25,000.
So it's less than a month's worth of lease to allow you to perform your operations versus skimming on that $10,000. And we know it's going to be less than $10,000 to review a 10-page document, but let's just say it is $10,000, and now they're in this whole heap and this whole mess that they can't even operate basically because of the first sentence. So in fact, that's a really, really expensive shortcut.
it's going to lose it's $1 million of money invested, of actual cash, hard cash, with liquor license, with setting things up, and emotional damage is beyond that. So it's millions and millions of it's millions of dollars over a $10,000.
Oh my God!
Just to save $10,000. It's stepping over hundreds of dollars to save a penny, which makes no sense. And Frank's done the same thing. I've done the same thing. I remember when with his first hotel too. We've had this podcast already, so I don't spend a lot of time on it. And the reason he stayed for a month is so he wouldn't make the same mistake. He learned from that mistake, which is I'm not leaving until it's open and it's done. And he got his operation running in 30 days versus a year or a year and a half, 2 years. And it wasn't until he understood that the $5 or $20 that he was trying to save here and there was costing him $20,000 a month. And he actually lost more money being closed longer than he did in this by a thousandfold. The pennies that he was trying to save, trying to get this thing, extending this opening, as much as possible. And I think when you understood those numbers and the cost of not being open,
the opportunity cost was much higher than the actual rehab cost in the end.
Yeah. You could have bought the hotel again on what you lost. So sometimes we lose sight of that. Saving a penny actually can cost you millions, and not doing this business is costing you millions, because there are people that are doing and getting into this business, making a shit ton of money, not using their own money because they understand how asset-based lending works. They've invested in their education and actually actioning on the education, because many people get into something and do nothing, because no matter how, I can guarantee one result, which is if you do nothing, nothing's going to happen. That's 100% guaranteed. That's the only guarantee that I'm going to give you, because that's how life works. But if you put effort into something with humans that are really wanting to support you and help you, and make sure you avoid those mistakes, because we've all made them and we want to help other people avoid mistakes full time so you don't waste time, then you're going to do extremely well. And the only person that can stop you from doing that, of course, is yourself. So I think we nailed it as much as we can. Thank you so much for listening to our rants and rabbles and shitting hit roofs and fans and other places, because I'm actually going to figure out how to design a toilet where I can have the shit hit the roof. That's a fucking great expression. And maybe Frank's bird.
There you go.
He's a bird. So
there you go.
That's
I like that. I'll be the hawk.
So love you both. Love you both very much. Appreciate you. I miss you already, Frank. Miss our talks as well. Yeah, well, that's that. So, guys, thanks so much for listening. Like it, love it, share it, subscribe, tell your friends and frenemies. We're creeping up in our rankings, and we just want to deliver as much content, as much value, give as much as possible, so you, as a listener, can really action one little thing that allows you to make a big difference in your financial future. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
If you like this episode of Big Fat Real Estate Checks, then show some love by leaving a comment and a good rating. Also, as a thank you for tuning in today, we've got a special free gift. The journey to passive cash flow for life starts by finding deals, and it's easier than you think. Simply go to getdealsbytuesday.com, enter your email address, and we'll send you a free quick start course called Deals by Tuesday. Even if it's 11 p.m. Monday night, this course will show you how to find discounted real estate deals by Tuesday. It's that fast and simple. Go to getdealsbytuesday.com and start your journey toward life-changing cash flow today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.